right. Hi, everyone. It is Jamie here at Madlit Musings, and today I have with me Ruth Douthitt, who is writing under R.A. Douthitt and just has a new book releasing May 30th called The Doors of Rome.
Yay! So excited.
Yeah, I'm excited too. So these are literally doors of Rome on the
Yeah,
cover, correct?
correct. Yeah, I took quite a few pictures myself when we went, but they're nothing compared to the ones I found online. That picture is really beautiful
Yeah.
from Deposit Photos. So,
Yeah, I've been to Rome myself, and I agree. The doors there, I mean, people think it's
yep.
kind of a cliche, but it's not. There are so many cool doors in that
hmm
city.
Yeah, and as I was taking pictures, I thought there's got to be a book about this somewhere. I had that in the back of my mind. So,
Yeah.
5 years later, here it is.
Here it is, and it's releasing. So, okay, let me just for the fun of it, and to spare you the awkward question of tell me what your book's about, I'm just going to read the summary
Okay.
straight up. So, it is Salt of the Earth housewife Millie Devonshire enjoys making a home for her husband and going on therapy jogs with her best friend. Yet Millie feels adventure is missing from her life. Middle-aged, childless, and married to all too practical Walter, Millie is consistently told to wait until retirement for their adventurous life to begin. Wah, wah. That sound effect was mine. Just want to throw that in there. That's not actually in the summary. One day, she enters a photography contest and wins first prize, an all expense paid trip to Rome for two. Certainly, Walter will agree to go on this free adventure with her, right? Oh. When Walter declines because he's up for a promotion at work, Millie decides to make her own dreams of adventure come true. She heads to Rome with her best friend and running partner Edith instead. Yet Edith has her own demands. She'll only go if Millie runs the Rome Marathon. Sounds exhausting. With her. When Millie and Edith arrive in Rome, they have no idea how their lives are about to be turned upside down and how many other lives will be transformed forever. Always kind, always cheery, and always hopeful, the indomitable, I like that word, Millie takes Rome by storm and learns some of life's greatest lessons along the way. If you don't invest in love, you'll lose it. And sometimes you have to leave someone behind to get their attention. Which
Mhm.
makes me think Walter might play a little bit more into the story than just the deadbeat husband that's up for a
Yeah,
promotion.
definitely. Yeah, definitely. He does. He does.
Super fun. Okay, so first of all, tell me a little bit. Is this marathon, this Rome marathon, is it a real thing?
Yes, I ran it in
You
2018.
did.
Yeah, so I used part of that as the story. I kind of combined, I had read the book Enchanted April and watched that movie years ago and loved the premise of these, middle-aged housewives in frustrating marriages renting an Italian castle. They rented a home in an Italian
Okay.
castle to have an adventure. And so that always stayed in the back of my mind. And then, of course, when I experienced Rome
Hmm.
itself, the beauty of it, and then the Rome Marathon and what happened to me. And so I kind of just combined it all together. And told my husband the premise of the story when we got back from Rome, and
Hmm.
he didn't like the ending, so I twisted, I changed the ending, and he was like, "Yeah, okay, that's a really good story." So I was like, "Yeah,
Well, one of the things that I like about the story too is you're not dealing with heroines that are, in their late 20s and early 30s, but you've got a
yes."
middle-aged heroine that I think a lot of readers are going to relate to.
I've already been getting reviews, and a lot of the readers are saying that they like how they're like, I'm going to buy this for my mom, or I
Mm.
totally, identify with Millie because of where I'm at. And I kind of wanted it that way because of the book, the famous book and movie, Mrs. Harris Goes to Paris.
Mm.
Women who think that their lives are over with, they're at the autumn or winter stage of their lives and they can't have an adventure. And I say horse hockey. Yes, you can. You might have to make your own, but if you're
Right.
married to a practical man who's like, we'll do all that when we're retired, again, horse hockey, do it now. Life is too short. So I kind of had to nudge my husband to say, to convince him to go to Rome for our
Hmm.
30th wedding anniversary. But when we were there, he was so appreciative. He said, I'm glad we did this. I'm really glad we didn't
Yeah.
wait. So that's kind of like the point of the book. Don't wait. Do it now. Don't
Yeah.
wait, you
Yeah.
know.
So, do you explore? I mean, there's two different types of relationships really in this book that it seems like you're exploring. One, it would be the relationship between two best friends who go on an adventure together, and then the other is, I don't want to say a troubled marriage, just kind of a marriage that may be on a plateau.
Yes.
Is that a better way of
Yeah.
describing it?
That's exactly right. I mean, they love each other, but
Hmm.
he's just so frugal and practical, and he wants to put things off until retirement.
Okay.
But Millie kind of feels like, well, her best friend Edith is a very famous author, and so she's got money and she relaxes and enjoys life, but she lost her husband. And so Millie saw that, how it affected Edith, losing your husband, and this age is very, very difficult.
Yeah.
And so Millie starts to become concerned that maybe if they put things off and put things off, it might be too late, you know?
Hmm.
And so it's two friends close in age. They've known each other all their lives, and now they're on this adventure, challenging each other. Edith's kind of like the foil, you know, she challenges Millie, keeps her perspective right on
Hmm.
point, but also encourages her, inspires her. Millie just loves her to death because she's so blunt. You know, Edith is just so blunt and
Sure.
to the point, you know. But she admires her because she encompasses, you know, that adventure spirit. And when she goes to Rome, she tells her, don't just look at it, smell it, listen to it, you know, really involve all the senses when you're in
Yeah.
Rome
Yeah.
and in Florence and then, you know, and all the Vatican. And so she really challenges Millie to go outside that comfort zone. And then Walter, you know, he has plateaued. He's kind of settled into this groove that frustrates Millie, but they do love each other. But she is challenged into thinking like a lot of women, you know, our age do, where we're kind of like getting that sense of resentment, you know, well, if
Hmm.
he really believed in me, you know, he would have come.
Hmm.
And so it's tempting to fall into that trap too. So she's kind of tempted to do that as well. But Millie loves him. She sends him text messages while she's there. She writes emails to him every night, sends him photographs because she really wants him to feel like he's with her.
Okay.
But, you know, she just gets frustrated because he never replies to any of her messages, her voicemails, her
Oh,
text messages, her emails. So the resentment starts to build and
yeah.
build, and you can't see where
Yeah.
it's going.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, all these stories start forming in your head of what's he up to? Have
Why
he's
doesn't he care? Yeah.
he forgotten all about me? Maybe he's
Hmm.
glad I left to go to
Right.
Rome,
Yeah.
right?
And Millie, being the middle child in a big family,
Mm,
she has always felt unseen and unheard. So it frustrates her. She's starting to think, you know, Walter doesn't even see me. I'm
mm,
just there. I
mhm,
cook and clean, and I'm just there. He doesn't see me.
mhm,
And so Edith kind of challenges her, you know, or is that true, or are you just thinking that way?
mhm.
You know, stick with what's true. So
Yeah,
it's kind
yeah.
of there's some, you know, there's a lot of Christian principles in there in that Millie starts to resent him and think, I can do this on my own. Maybe I could even live in Rome by myself. You know, she
Mm,
starts to go down that dangerous path.
right, right.
So,
Yeah. So how do you because I'm going to assume there's a happily ever after to the story. However, you're dealing with a pretty deep topic of where you find your fulfillment.
yeah.
And how do you incorporate Millie's faith journey in finding that fulfillment, and even being willing to lose something,
Hmm.
um, to find a contentment with where God has her in life?
Mm. I put in Judith. Now, when Millie wins the contest, she goes over there with five other winners, and they're allowed to bring their significant others. There's a mom and daughter group, there's a father-son group, and there's like a light romance happening there. There's a happily married couple, and then there's a couple who are struggling in their
Mhm.
marriage. And then there's Millie and Edith.
Right.
And so I put Judith in there, and she's the wife in the marriage where things are not going very well. And Judith is like the nemesis. She's very jealous of Millie's
Mhm.
talent, and she kind of nudges Millie's resentment so it'll grow along with her resentment toward her husband George, you know.
Mhm.
So I put Judith in there so that Millie can see what a woman who lacks contentment looks like, and that's Judith.
Mhm.
She's not content with having won this all expenses paid trip to Rome. She's not content with being in Rome. She's not content with having won this contest, you know. And so Millie sees that this is what unhappiness looks like. Do you really want it? And
Mhm.
then I put a happy married couple in there too. And at first, Millie's jealous of them, but then she starts to appreciate them and think maybe I should be like that when I get home with Walter
Mm,
too. So it has a lot to do with contentment and being happy where God puts you, being grateful for the things that God has given you. And so in the father-son duo that she meets, Ben is an older gentleman, and he kind of convinced his son to enter the contest and win. So his son took him with him on this trip. And Ben is kind of like the words of wisdom. He
mm,
sees where Millie's going. So he meets with her and he's like, you got to remember why you fell in love with Walter in the first place,
yeah,
and that need to accept him for who he is and not start to fill your heart with all this resentment and get hardened.
right.
So he kind of reminds her, and I think it's good for the readers, to read that too, to be reminded. With social media and everything, we get so caught up in the comparison,
Right.
thing. We
Yeah.
start to compare, and how come I don't have that and I want that.
Mm-hmm.
And so I kind of wanted the readers to see that too,
Yeah.
that it matters. So the Rome Marathon, the way it plays out is when I ran it, I kind of signed up with a bit of arrogance. I only gave myself like 3 months to train.
Ooh.
And my husband was like, "Are you sure that's enough time?" And I said, "Oh, I just ran a race a few months ago. Muscle memory, I can do it. I've run so many marathons. That's no big deal. I got this. I got this." Well, when I hit the wall at mile 16, that was a
Oof.
shocker because I
Yeah.
usually don't hit the wall till like mile 20. So
I hit them all at the quarter mile, so.
So, I had this big, huge dose of humility. I had to sit down at the side of the
Mm,
road, which is something a marathoner never does.
mm-mm.
But I had to
No.
swallow my pride and I bowed my head and said, God, please forgive me for doing this. You're right.
Mm,
I should trust in myself. I shouldn't trust in my training. I should have put my trust in you. And when I said amen, that's when the Lord sent me help. And this local participant in the marathon named Sal came along and he helped me. And we walked together for 9 miles. And he
mm.
showed me all the sites in Rome, where he grew up
Oh,
and what this fountain was and what that fountain was. And the Lord really used him to remind me sometimes you need someone to come alongside you and help
yeah.
you. You have to be humble and admit you need help.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes you need to just walk.
Mm.
And for a marathoner, we see walking as weak.
Sure. Yeah,
But
no, that makes
he,
sense.
but Sal kept telling me, walk, don't run, walk. And
Mm.
so it was great to walk 9 miles. My body got strong again, and we ran the last mile across the finish line. So
Okay.
there was like this story that needed to be told for the Christian. Sometimes you need to walk and
Mm-hmm.
not run. Sometimes you
Mm-hmm.
need to rest and cry out to God to finish the race strong.
Yeah.
And sometimes he sends someone alongside you to help you get through it. So
Yeah.
that's why I added that part in the race. And Millie, she has that humiliating moment too and starts to realize God's talking to her. She was so panicked as she prayed near the side of the road. Do you see me, God? Do you hear me?
Mm. Yeah. Yeah.
She always felt unseen and unheard in her marriage, in her childhood. And so she thought, I'm sure God doesn't see me here.
Yeah.
So she just needed to learn to trust God again and listen to that voice inside, and
Mm-hmm.
walk, not
Yeah.
run.
Yeah. Well, that's so true. I mean, and you look at, yeah, it's kind of funny as I get older and approach middle age. What
Have
is middle
fun.
age? Should we define this? No, let's not. Let's not define it.
Well, since we
Um,
all lived 110, it's now 50 years old, 55 years old.
oh, okay, yeah. So as I approach middle age, thanks, Ruth. Um, but so much of that is, um, I'm stuttering now because I'm trying to take my thoughts and put them into words, which is a miracle in and of itself that I'm able to get them out sometimes. But I was thinking the other day of when I was in my early 20s, like even pre-marriage, like everything in life was laid ahead like this massive adventure. The romance was yet to come,
Of
motherhood was yet to
course.
come, the dreams, the travel, all of that was yet to come. And now I'm like, I've got kids that are getting, well, I've got one that's a teenager and I've got another one that's close. And I've been married for 23 years, not saying I'm bored, but it's like you kind of hit this point where you're like,
Hmm.
what, I don't want to sound negative, but like, what's next? Or
Hmm.
what's left? Like, now do I just get ready to die?
I
You
know
know,
you can get
I'm not,
stuck in that groove,
yes,
you know?
yes. And you're just kind of like, oh, this is so not what I expected to be like when I was in my late 40s. So it's fun to hear stories like what you were just sharing with your actual race, but then also have books like this that come out that show that, hey, there's still a lot of life left to live.
Yes, life's too short. You have to
Yeah.
get out there and do it. Even if you have to make your own adventure, do it. To go
Mm-hmm.
travel where you always wanted to go. You know, I'm 56, and that's the age my sister was when she passed away.
Mm-hmm.
And she didn't get to do all the things she wanted to do. Her life
Mm-hmm.
was, taken like that.
Yeah.
So her daughters are now doing things. They've traveled, they're going back to
Mm.
school, they're having kids, they're living their lives. So I always learn from that, and
Yeah.
don't put off what you can do right now, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. All right. So this is your call, everyone, to go book a ticket to Rome.
And get in the Rome
And the
Marathon.
first
Woohoo!
person
Next
to call me and
April.
Ruth with a free ticket for us, we will come with you on this trip. That's your prize. No.
I'm there. I'll run the marathon with you too if you go.
I will not run the marathon. I will cheer Ruth on as she runs the marathon.
Oh
No,
my.
seriously, I was so proud of myself when I ran a mile. I just I
Yay.
gotta brag.
I didn't start racing until I was 40.
Really? Are you
So I got to
serious?
brag about that too. My husband was the one who
Awesome.
challenged us. Yeah. He said, "Hey, before we turn 41, let's run our marathon." And I was like, as
Okay.
naive. Sure.
Yeah,
And
oh, that sounds
so I
great.
got bit by the bug. And
Yeah.
so you don't have to put off, do it now. But
Hmm.
just because you're in your 40s or 50s doesn't mean you can't do it. So
Right, right. Well, that's so true.
it's
So
going to hurt, but
yeah, yeah. And there's other things you can do. You don't have to run a marathon. You could do like a movie marathon
there you go.
or
A
a book
Netflix
marathon.
movies marathon, book marathon. Woohoo. We're doing an Avengers marathon this weekend. I know that's for sure.
Oh, that sounds nice. We did that over the winter with our kids. We did.
Those are
They
fun.
are
Those are
so
the
much
fun
fun.
kind of marathons where
Yes.
you don't wake up sore the next morning.
Although I would say if you were going to get me to run a marathon, if you tempted me with Rome, I would be tempted
Oh,
to, yeah.
it was so amazing. I didn't even feel pain till like mile 8. The
Mm,
fountains and the ruins that you run by the
mm-hmm,
pyramids, run by the Circus Maximus, and then I found myself at the Vatican at
mm.
mile 11 with the Pope giving mass, and it
Oh,
was just magical. Yeah,
that's
just
really
if you're gonna
cool.
do one, do that
Hmm.
one.
Yep. All right. All right. I will put that on the low side of my bucket list. And if I get to that point,
But until then, read The Doors of Rome.
until then, I was just going to say, until
You'll
then, for
feel
those of
like you're
us
there. Yeah.
who want to live vicariously through Millie and pretend that we are
Yes.
Millie, you can go out and get The Doors of Rome. It releases May 30th. So if you are listening to this on the day the podcast release, it releases today. And you can get it on Amazon. And what else am I missing, Ruth? What else do we need to tell
And
them?
it's got an recipe for authentic Italian lasagna bolognese at the
Oh,
back of the book. So, because food
right
is a
there.
very important part of this book.
Sold, sold, sold. I had lasagna in Florence,
Mm, my
and
husband did too. Yeah.
I have never had lasagna like that
Mm-mm.
ever again. This one
I
had
know.
this one had bacon bits in it,
Oh,
but not like dehydrated bacon bits. I'm talking
no.
like they actually
Like,
fried the bacon and then
yeah,
crumpled it up and
bruschetta.
put
I
it
think
on.
they call it bruschetta or something.
Is that what it
Oh,
is? Oh, I'm not Italian, but I want it so bad. I can still taste it, and it's been
yep.
10 years.
Oh, I'm telling you.
All right, everyone, free lasagna recipe in the back of this book. If that has not convinced you, I don't know what will. So get out there, order The Doors of Rome. If you do order it, if you read it, leave some reviews. That's really,
Yes.
really helpful.
Yes.
So please
I would
leave reviews
love
on
to know what you think
Amazon.
of it. Yes,
Yeah,
please.
yeah, it is helpful for authors too.
Yes,
I do like to
definitely.
know. And
And it's
honestly,
encouraging.
it's encouraging. And even if it's a 1 star,
Yes.
be
But
honest,
something. Yeah, be
put
honest.
something. And sometimes we learn from 1 stars, and sometimes we're like, well,
Yeah.
I agree to disagree. But
Yeah.
leave a review either
Even if
way.
you just say, I love it. That's perfect. That's
It
great.
is. Yeah, you don't have to write a whole book summary. They can read the
Exactly.
book summary on Amazon.
Yes.
You just write, I love it. So, all right. Well, Ruth, this is so much fun having you here, and I look forward to reading the book and more books coming in the future. So I'm sure you'll be back.
Absolutely. Thanks, Jamie.